Welcome to Love and Tears. Tonight's story begins with a look steady cold and painfully calm. She sat across from him at the small restaurant table, fingers resting lightly on a glass of red wine. Then with a voice so quiet it almost sounded kind, she said, "I don't regret anything, not a single thing." There was no shouting, no trembling hands, no dramatic scene. He just nodded almost softly because her words didn't break him. They simply confirmed what he had known for a very long time. The woman sitting in front of him might still wear his last name. She might still wear her wedding ring. But in every way that mattered, loyalty, respect, decency, she had stopped being his wife a long time ago. This version of her was different, sharper, harder. A woman who sipped Pinot Noir like it was any ordinary Tuesday night, while the whole marriage slowly crumbled beneath her heels. He lifted his own glass, not to steady himself, his nerves were already gone, but to admire the quiet symmetry of this moment. Because tonight was not what she thought it was. She assumed this dinner was some desperate attempt to fix things, a final plea, a speech about history, the kids, the vows, the memories. Maybe she even expected him to beg. But tonight wasn't about saving anything. Tonight was the funeral. A young waiter approached West slightly too small, shifting his weight as he asked if they were ready to order. She smiled politely, so sweet and civilized. He told the waiter they needed a little more time, not because he needed the menu. He already knew he wouldn't be eating a single bite tonight, but she didn't need to know that. She turned back to him, swirling her wine like a critic about to judge the legs of the glass. "Can we just be honest?" she asked, almost amused. "You knew, right? You had to have suspected something." He nodded. He had. He had suspected months ago. The late-night gym sessions. Yet her makeup always perfect. The new lingerie that never once appeared in their bedroom. And the way she kissed him distant quick, like touching him, left a taste she didn't want to keep. Yes, he knew, but she mistook his calm for denial. "I figured," she said, a smug smile forming. "You always seemed like the type who'd rather live in blissful ignorance than confront reality. Keep the image. Pretend everything's fine." He didn't respond. Her tactic had always been the same: bait, provoke, distort. When he didn't react, she lost her balance, and slowly, that smirk began to fade. The restaurant was small, elegant, quiet. Soft jazz in the corner. Napkins folded like origami. He chose it deliberately. A controlled space. Peaceful. A place where she would feel relaxed, confident in control. She dressed for it too tight. Black dress, curled hair, a perfume he hadn't smelled on her skin in months. She thought this was her night to feel powerful. But he wasn't here for the show. "I know this sounds harsh," she continued, voice airy, unapologetic, "but I don't feel guilty. I don't think I ever will." He nodded, setting his glass down gently. "I believe you." Just one blink. Barely noticeable. But he caught it. She expected anger. A raised voice. A slammed fist. Something. Instead, silence. It unnerved her. "You're not going to ask me why," she pressed. "You're not going to say anything." "I will," he said, glancing at his watch. Just not yet. Her eyes followed the movement to his wrist. A flicker of confusion. Good. She leaned in, irritated now. So what you brought me here to sit quietly while you pretend you're above all this? He held her gaze. No. I brought you here so you could say everything you wanted. So you could feel powerful. In control. She scoffed. Are you trying to threaten me? No, he replied, voice calm enough to make the air feel heavy. Threats are for people who haven't already made their move. For the first time that night, she froze. Somewhere deep inside her chest, the smallest instinct whispered, something is wrong. She opened her mouth to speak, but he raised a hand gently. I let you talk, he said. Now I will. He reached into his jacket and placed a small folded envelope on the table. Her name written on the front in neat cursive. She stared at it. What is that? Something you'll want to read, he answered, but not here. You're being dramatic, maybe he said, rising from his seat. Or maybe, by dawn, you'll be begging for forgiveness. She laughed, sharp, dismissive, confident, but he didn't stay long enough to hear it fade. He turned and walked away, leaving her with the wine, the soft jazz, and the illusion that she still held any power at all. She didn't know that the game had already ended, long before this night began. She didn't know it yet, but control was slipping through her fingers. Whatever power she believed she held, it would unravel soon enough. And by morning, she wouldn't be sipping wine. She'd be choking on regret. People like to talk about betrayal as if it's one moment, one explosive instant where everything shatters. But that's not how it felt for him. For him, it was a slow leak, a faint hiss somewhere in the background of their marriage. Something he couldn't quite place until one day. He realized he was already underwater. It began quietly. A muted phone screen turned upside down. A kiss she angled her face away from. The way her eyes glazed over when he told her about his day. Like his voice was background noise, not a husband speaking. He told himself it was stress. They both worked long hours, late meetings, endless deadlines. She was a project manager at some boutique marketing agency, fast, young, energetic. If he had been paying attention, maybe he would have realized young and fast described more than just their client turnaround times. But he didn't want to be that man, the paranoid husband. So he defended her, justified everything inside his own head. Every couple goes through dry spells, right? 8 years of marriage? It happens. Then came the gym. She hadn't set foot in a gym since their honeymoon. But suddenly, she was going 4 nights a week, always around 8 p.m. Always in full makeup curls, perfect perfume lingering, like she was going on a date instead of a treadmill. He made one joke, just one, and she shredded him. Can't I take care of myself without you turning it into something ugly? That word ugly stuck to his ribs like a thorn. It was always the pattern with her. If he asked a question, he didn't trust her. If he expressed concern, he was controlling. If he showed pain, he was insecure. She was a master at flipping the mirror back onto him, twisting every suspicion into a flaw of his character. But mirrors only lie for so long. The crack came quietly, a Sunday afternoon. She left her phone on the counter while she showered, screen facing up. He wasn't the type to snoop. He had never touched her phone before, But when the screen lit up and he saw Eric and a preview of a message, still thinking about last night, something inside him broke. He didn't open it. He didn't have to. She stepped out of the bathroom, humming, wrapped in a towel, hair damp steam following her into the kitchen. She saw him staring at the phone. For a moment, her expression didn't change, but then she saw his eyes, the way he looked at her, and something in her body went still. You went through my phone. It's not what you think. Not I can explain. Not even who's Eric. Straight to the counterattack. He raised his hands. I didn't open anything. I just saw the message. And her response, the thing that confirmed everything, wasn't guilt, wasn't regret, wasn't fear. It was cold, simple, unapologetic. You had no right. He nodded. Okay, that was the moment he knew. Not just that she was cheating, not just that she lied, but that betrayal meant nothing to her. Breaking their vows seemed to weigh less than breaking a dinner reservation. And somehow, he was the villain for noticing. The next weeks blurred into a performance she tried to control. She made grocery lists, watched Netflix beside him, asked what he wanted for dinner, as if normalcy could erase the truth. But something inside him had already gone silent. He went to work, smiled when he needed to, played the role, but behind the calm, he was preparing for a reckoning. He installed a security camera claiming it was for package theft. She didn't ask a single question. He backed up their shared drive, their messages, her emails, quietly, legally, patiently. He didn't argue, didn't accuse, because he wasn't searching for an apology. He was gathering the truth. When a man stops reacting, he starts observing. And when he starts observing, the game is already over. The final piece came from someone he never expected, her sister Melanie. She called late one night, voice tight with alcohol and guilt. She said she was tired of watching the lie. She didn't agree with what her sister was doing, but blood was blood. Just check her email, she whispered. Look in her events folder. He did, and there it was. Dinner reservations, hotel bookings, fake work trips, messages to someone named Ray. Ray, as it turned out, wasn't a woman. Ray was an alias. He traced the number. Eric. Full name Eric Randolph. Her junior at work. Younger. Faster. Exactly her type these days. Eric was younger, 10 years, maybe more. The kind of man who lived on Instagram gym selfies, crypto rants, motivational captions like hustle hard. He hustled all right, hustle hard, cheat harder. He didn't confront her. Not yet. That night, he sat on the porch with a glass of whiskey in his hand and a sky that felt more honest than his marriage had in months. No tears, no yelling. Just a quiet decision forming in his chest. If she could play her role, then he could play his. And when the curtain finally fell, everyone would see who the real villain was. Melanie's confession wasn't the ending. It was just the opening act. Once he confirmed Eric's identity, emails, calendar invites, little breadcrumbs, they thought no one would ever notice the whole picture came into focus. They had been careful, but never careful enough. She had booked a hotel for an out-of-town pitch meeting. Except the hotel wasn't anywhere near her firm's office. It was a boutique place known for discretion. No cameras, no questions, room service that knocked softly or not at all if you left the privacy tag on the door. He didn't rush. He documented. Emails printed. Calendar logs screenshotted. IP addresses traced. Messages to the fake contact. Ray were enough to show intent. Then came the hotel confirmation dates, rooms receipts. Not illegal, just persuasive. But the video, that would be the crown jewel. Melanie had told him something else that day. Something that stuck to him like a splinter beneath the skin. She brags about how you'll never leave. Says you're too passive. Even if you found out, you wouldn't know what to do. That was the moment his heartbreak hardened into something sharper. She didn't just betray him. She laughed at the idea of consequences. She gambled that he would do nothing. And that was his invitation. The only way to end this was not to leave quietly. It was to let her sit in the wreckage of what she built, not as a victim, as a witness to her own ruin. So he called someone who owed him a favor. Jordan, a friend from college, who now ran a high-end tech security firm. Years ago, when Jordan's father was in the hospital, he helped him get through an impossible physics semester. A debt never forgotten. What you're asking? Jordan said voice low is legal. If you're installing it in your own home, I am. You want audio or video? Both. No questions asked. 3 days later, a small voice-activated camera nestled perfectly between books on their bedroom shelf. Another inside a charging dock in the guest room, the room where she always disappeared when she needed privacy. It didn't take long. One Thursday night, he told her he had a work dinner. He didn't. He sat in his car 4 blocks away behind a florist shop, watching the live feed on his phone, staring at nothing but his own hands on the steering wheel. At 7:12 p.m., she walked in wearing a red dress, one she never wore around him anymore. At 7:31, Eric arrived. He watched them kiss in the hallway like their home had never belonged to anyone else. Eric called her babe. She laughed, whispering that her husband still hadn't figured anything out. He could have lived with the infidelity, the lies, the sneaking around. But that laugh, that was ridicule. That was contempt. They weren't ashamed, they were entertained. He didn't run inside, didn't break down the door, didn't scream. He waited. Waited until they were both asleep, tangled in sheets that weren't theirs anymore. Then he slipped in through the side door, quiet as a ghost, and retrieved the SD cards. He backed up everything. 1 copy for himself, 1 for his attorney, and 1 for Eric's girlfriend. Yes, Eric had one. He found her on social media easily. Just last week, she posted a photo of him, her future hubby, a future that was about to dissolve. Over the next 2 weeks, he moved silently, gently, patiently. Not a raised voice, not a single hint. He met with a lawyer, someone sharp, someone ruthless. Shared every file, every recording, every log. They drafted the divorce papers. He moved funds from their joint account into his protected personal one. Nothing illegal, only his pre-tax contributions. He froze her credit card auto payments, cancelled the Netflix, the Spotify, the spa membership she used more than their shared bed. He updated his will, changed his emergency contact, moved his sentimental items, photos, keepsakes, his father's watch into storage, Piece by piece, he removed her from his life while she laughed in someone else's arms. She didn't notice. Not once. She was too busy playing house with Eric while he quietly packed up the foundation beneath her feet. It was almost poetic, because the final act was still coming. The lock clicked softly. No shouting. No chaos. Just the quiet finality of wood meeting metal. She stayed on the porch for a long time. At first knocking, then begging, then just standing there. Like she was waiting for the past to rewind itself. Like the door would magically open if she stayed long enough. It didn't. Eventually, footsteps faded. A car door slammed. Silence settled again. And for the first time in months, the house felt clean. Not just tidy, cleansed. Like someone had aired out a room that had been suffocating for years. I walked back into the living room, sat down, and exhaled. No tears, no shaking hands, just stillness. People imagine revenge as fire rage explosion storms, but sometimes it's ice. Quiet, patient, precise. I never wanted to destroy her. She did that on her own. I just stopped saving her from the consequences. By evening, her phone had stopped vibrating. By midnight, her name was gone from our joint accounts, from the utility bills, from the emergency contacts, from the future. I slept with the window open that night. The air was cold, but honest. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for someone to walk through the door. I wasn't watching shadows. I wasn't wondering if I was enough or too much or the problem. I just slept. When morning came, I made coffee. Black. Quiet kitchen. Sunlight on the counter. A small, simple peace. And maybe that's the real ending to this story. Not the voicemail, not the tears, not the box on the porch, but this moment, a man alone, breathing freely in his own home again. The world didn't collapse. Love didn't die loudly. It just slipped off like a ring no longer meant to be worn. She once said I'd never leave. She once said I'd never do anything about it. She once said I was too passive. Funny, strength looks different when it finally shows up, and somewhere across the city, maybe in a hotel room or a borrowed couch or outside an HR office with a folder in her lap, she's realizing something I had to learn the hard way. You can only lie to someone who loves you. Once they stop, there's nothing left to manipulate. The chapter is closed, but the story still being written quietly. No screaming, no slammed doors, just closure. It's strange I thought I'd feel angry, triumphant even. Maybe I'd finally get that rush victims dream about in the middle of long nights. But all I felt was calm. I didn't destroy her. She just finally met the version of me she underestimated. The one who doesn't chase, the one who watches from across the table, with steady eyes and a glass of wine, already knowing that by dawn she'd beg for forgiveness, and I wouldn't have to say a word. The last time I saw her was through the glass. She stood in the driveway for maybe 20 minutes after I closed the door. She didn't cry like she did in the voicemail. No shaking, no sobbing, no frantic explanations. Just stillness. The kind of stillness that comes when someone realizes they're already underwater and no one is coming to pull them out. Eventually, she got in her car and left. She didn't take the box with her. I left it there overnight, untouched on the porch. In the morning, I carried it to the edge of the yard and placed a small note on top. Returned to sender. It rained that day. By the time she came back for it, everything inside was soaked. I didn't watch her this time. I just heard tires on wet pavement, a car door slam cardboard, peeling off concrete. She didn't knock again, and that was how it ended. No dramatic screaming match. No cheating scandal with a family member. No burning clothes on the lawn. Just silence, precision, and something far more devastating than anger. Being erased. You'd think that would be enough, right? Divorce papers signed. Finances separated. Reputations, if not ruined, at least bloodied. I could have closed that chapter and walked away. But I still had one more thing to do. Because it wasn't just about what she did. It was about who she tried to convince me I was. The helpless husband. The oblivious doormat. The boring fallback guy you settle for until something flashier comes along. The one you can lie to, manipulate, discard, and still expect him to show up and beg for another chance. That version of me died the second she said, "I don't regret a thing." So I wrote something. Not a manifesto, not some angry rant, just a letter to her parents, to Eric's ex-girlfriend, to my family, the ones who sensed something was wrong, but didn't want to overstep. It was short. I've decided not to justify her actions or mine. What happened between us is over. There's no need for rumor or speculation. If you want answers, ask her. If she tells the truth, you'll know everything. If she lies, you'll know even more. Daniel. I sent it. Then I closed the email account we used as a couple, cancelled the shared phone plan, changed every password, deleted our wedding photos from the cloud, not out of spite, but because I didn't want to remember a performance. I kept just one, archived, locked away, labeled before I knew. The house feels different now. Not haunted, not broken, just mine. I didn't sell it, didn't remodel it. I simply reclaimed it, hung my own art, cooked meals that didn't revolve around whatever fad diet she was chasing. Let the silence be peace, not punishment. Some nights, I sit on the back porch with a drink and listen to the wind move through the trees. I used to sit out there even when she was home, but back then, it felt like an escape. Now it feels like coming back. She still texts every so often. Nothing dramatic, just breadcrumbs. Hope you're well. Can we talk? I miss your steadiness. I never reply. Not because I want to hurt her, but because some messages don't deserve answers. People think I hate her. I don't. And that surprises them the most. I don't wish her pain. I don't want revenge. I just finally understand something. I was never the weak one. I was the storm she didn't see coming. The man who didn't raise his voice because he didn't have to. And when she whispered across that restaurant table, "I don't regret a thing," I smiled, because I knew that by dawn, she would finally learn what regret tastes like.